empty.
Yes,
this
and
is
they
the place
can
you
access
punch
it.
it.
I have a key.
Yeah.
They don't have one, and
So
I
Gordon,
really
I
want to
can
be
get in,
comfortable having to
and
check the key. We've done everything.
Actually, wait
So
just a minute, because
she
we're
put
not
it
gonna.
down, and she
they
throw it.
can, they can.
I did my best.
You
At least I made it so that it could tell.
You know, you do it for 2 days.
I'll finish.
Oh, yeah, throw that away. That's a
Get
miss.
a private practice.
I already put the dates on for the postcard.
Do that.
Give these to those.
So you have to.
Okay, we're
Okay,
good.
then I'll put Annette.
All right, let's call to order the February 6th meeting of the Citizens Involvement Council, the CIC. I'd like to welcome everyone. We missed January because of the holidays, and this room was being used, I believe, for another meeting at the time. So this is the first meeting since December. Glad you're all back. Let's go right away to Chris for a roll call.
Don Wright, Barkley Hills. Here. Walter White is excused from Barkley Hills. Howard Post, Kenema. Here. Paul Edgar, Kenema.
Here.
Larry Hanlon, Caulfield.
Here.
Rachel Gunderson is excused. Terry Campbell, Gaffney Lane. Kathy Hogan, Hazel Grove, Westling Farm.
Here.
Tom O'Brien, Hazel Grove, Westling Farm.
Here.
William Gifford, Hillendale.
Here.
Steve Anderson, Hillendale.
Here.
Michael Berman, Main Street.
Here.
Bill Daniels, McLaughlin. Alice Watts is excused. Nancy Kreschauer, Public Works. Tom Guile, Park Place.
Here.
Steve Van Haverbeek, Park Place.
Here.
Bruce Danielson, Rivercrest. Patty Brown, Rivercrest. Ingrid Rickenbach, South End. Here. David Rickenbach, South End. Steve Tam, Tower Vista. Scott Young, Tower Vista.
Here.
That completes roll call.
Thank you. Huh? You mean these seats up here, except for any presentations?
Have some guest speakers.
Those are the people that are up here, and let's go around the room for others so we know who's here, and you can introduce yourselves. Let's start over in this corner. Okay.
I'm Bob LaSalle, Park Place.
Welcome.
Linda Orson, I'm in Caulfield, but I'm also with the Friends of the Library.
Correct. Steve's already introduced himself. Okay.
Howard.
Amy Wilhite, Gaffney Lane.
Spell the last name, please.
Wilhite, W-I-L-L-H-I-T-E.
Thank you very much.
And some dark stranger in the back over there.
What neighborhood?
All neighborhoods.
Amy, what neighborhood are you with?
Gaffney Lane.
Gaffney. Thank you very much.
We should, based on previous history, whenever I say this, it's always puts a crunch on us, but we have a short agenda tonight, so we should be able to get out of here within an hour. So
Don't jinx it.
if we can, I know, don't jinx it. But if we can keep the side conversations down and keep right to the point of some of what's on the agenda, maybe we can get out of here in time to get home and watch The Voice. Anyway, we have no guest speakers this evening, so we're going to move right into approval.
We do have a guest speaker.
Who's that?
It's Linda Orson.
Oh, I was putting her under new business. I guess we could put her right up front so she can take care of that. Let's. We had somebody we were going to put under new business, but it's not really business. It's a speaker. So let's invite Linda Orson up to talk to us. Linda.
Thank you for making the exception. I know I should have gone through the proper channels to get on the agenda, but I just decided to come here and talk to you tonight and introduce myself. I am the 2012 chair of the Friends of the Library, and we are starting our year off really well. We started our year, for our first meeting, we started off with a little goal-setting session, because we need more members, and that's one of the reasons I'm here also, is to try and get up the membership for the Friends of the Library. One of our strengths is in numbers, and we have a very limited amount of volunteers in the Friends of the Library, and we could definitely use more volunteers at the bookstore and also on projects that we have in the works. Couple things. I'm going to be making a report to the City Commission, and one of the things I'd like to talk about is our volunteers. Our volunteers for the Friends for last year donated 4,134 hours for bookstore and the farmers market and related projects, which equivalent pay for the National Points of Life would come out to $76,364, which is an incredible amount of money and time that is volunteered by our members. But you all know we're working towards a new library, so that means we need more members to get more money. So that's one of the reasons I'm here, is to try and get membership. I will leave some membership forms. And this year we're also trying to get a few new programs going. We're going to try and create a newsletter for our friends, for the Friends and the library. I know there's been some discussion about the mini libraries program. We're working on the specifics for that, which once we finalize that and get that together, we'll get it out to the neighborhood associations, because we definitely want to involve the neighbors. We're also trying to get a TV presence for the library. We have a production that's coming out probably this week about we have a gentleman called Daniel Wilson. He's going to be coming to Oregon City. He wrote the book Robopocalypse, which is the big read for this year. And his book has also been bought by Steven Spielberg to be made into a major motion picture. So we put together a little video about him and trying to get more interest in that. We're also trying to get combined events for the library and the bookstore. And I noticed on your agenda that you have an update on the Building Commons Ground Grant. Well, one of the features of that grant was a photo contest, and we are going to be pursuing that photo contest also. And once we get that up and running, we will also bring that to the CIC and the neighborhood associations. So there's a lot happening with the Friends, and you can all be part of it. Yes, Kathy.
Yeah, I've heard it. I just wanted to recommend that you should get a little paper out saying, we take donated books, because you resell them, because I bring the books I read always back to the Friends of the Library so they can recirculate and resell them and make more money.
That's what we do, even the dime ones.
But a lot of people don't realize that, there's a lot of people that you have a very good Friends of the Library. Even my daughter from Tiger
we have one of the best.
And they loved it, and we'll probably be back.
Yes. We have a lot of local authors, too.
Yeah.
Oregon City and Portland local authors.
It's well organized, and so it just needs a little sign here or there, or a little thing, But they're tax deductible, taking your books off.
Join the Friends, and you can
Promote it. and where is the bookstore?
The bookstore is right across the street. And also in the bookstore is the Three Rivers Artists Guild, who also donates 25% of all of their sales to support the Friends of the Library.
Can I say something?
Are there any other questions?
I had a quick question for you about the, and then William's got a question or something. I wanted to ask about the photo contest you mentioned. Now, that's not part of the arts. This is part of the library.
It's going to be collaborative. Once we finally get it organized and figure out exactly what we want to do with it, we're going to try and get as many entities together as possible.
So is it like a creative photography contest, or is it historical of Oregon City, or is it just not quite sure yet?
Building common ground.
Okay. All right, just wondered.
We're building common ground, whether it is artwork, whether it is gardening, whether it is buildings, whether it is Main Street, whatever. We're
Okay.
building common ground.
Okay, and so that's yet to be announced when it's going to happen. Okay, William.
You're the first.
Linda, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions since your initial input was asking for volunteers. It might be nice to know the responsibilities and privileges of such volunteers. How frequently do you meet? What do your volunteers do? And so on. What type of volunteers are you looking for? Writers or speakers or
We are looking
deep pockets
for.
or what?
You got it. Yes.
All
A
of the
little bit of
above.
everything and anything. The Friends meet only once a year.
Oh, that's an easy
Okay,
one.
right.
I might sign up for
But
that.
the board meets once a month.
Oh,
It is my hope that we can extend the board or start getting committees together. We're talking about doing a newsletter, which would only go out through email. So if we need help with that, we'd like to get a group together to get the photo contest up and running. We'd like to get others involved in that. So there are a lot of ways that we can start involving more people. This is one of my goals this year, is to increase our membership and to get more people active. When I first joined the Friends, I really didn't have a role, and so I want to make sure that everybody in the Friends group or on the board can have a role. And
so that's the responsibilities and the rewards other than having a job. Well, I mean, do you get a cool membership card and a secret decoder ring or?
secret handshake.
Okay, I'm just wondering if there is a membership card. I mean, something to
No, there.
help people feel like they belong.
We did have a membership card. I'm not sure if we still have them anymore. You also get 10% off at the bookstore.
There's an incentive.
There's an incentive, yes.
I would say promote those
Also, the
positive
incentive.
externalities.
Yes, the incentive is helping us get a permanent library also. Huge incentive.
Thank you.
A lot of pride.
Okay, I see somebody else has put their name up here, and she's already had 2 minutes, so under the 3-minute rule, you only get one more minute,
Well, it was
Kathy.
just getting the information out is maybe with the neighborhood associations, if you have something that they can each put up and telling you a little something about it, maybe you could email the neighborhood chair.
Updates,
And
email to Chris, and Chris can email to
Yeah, to me,
everyone.
and we can maybe, if you had a little flyer about something that we could put out when we have our meetings.
Print up,
Yeah,
On the City Hall. bulletin
City
board.
Hall.
yeah.
Excellent, yes, we can do that.
While we have Linda here, is this an appropriate time to talk about this?
Sure, why not?
This is
Save me having to make a report later.
This is a letter sent to William here in care of the Citizens Involvement Council, something we talked about a short while ago. I think it was December, wasn't it? Thank you for your recent letter. It's from the Office of the County Administrator. Thank you for your recent letter of support for the Oregon City's offer to purchase a portion of a parcel of county-owned property on its Red Soils campus for a new library. The county has been reviewing the purchase offer in light of a January 23rd deadline for potential acceptance. Public interest and support is a consideration in the review process, and we appreciate hearing directly from community organizations and members. Other considerations under discussion include implications for the county's intended uses of the property as adopted in the Red Soils Master Plan, and timing for mitigation of potential traffic impacts, among several others. We appreciate hearing from the Citizens Involvement Council about this issue. Sincerely, Steve Wheeler. Just so you're aware that we got that.
And I know nothing about the site yet. It's the library board, that's the library board.
Well, since we've slid into that sort of a little mini report, Steve Anderson can speak for what the Hillendale Association took action on as well.
Our January 3rd.
Is your microphone, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I on?
One never can tell with you, Steve.
During our January 3rd Neighborhood Association meeting, this was also brought up and discussed. Since Red Soils campus is smack dab in the middle of Hillendale neighborhood,
There's also an extra switch we learned about at the last city commission meeting.
The old secret switch.
Try that.
Start over.
Testing. Next time I'll bring my own mic, huh, Ray? Yeah. As I said, on our January 3rd Neighborhood Association meeting, this topic was brought up and discussed. thanks to William's careful look at our watch care over our neighborhood. During discussion, it was moved to send a letter to the county commissioners in support of this also. So the neighborhood association is right in the middle of it.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. Thank you.
So
Appreciate
one
it.
other thing I would like to get out to the neighbors is cultural passes. We have cultural passes that you can check out from the library, get into the Portland Art Museum, Portland Classical Chinese Gardens, Crystal Springs Rhododendron Garden, Japanese Garden, Pittock Mansion, Portland's Children's Museum. And this is also another thing that the Friends of the Library supports.
And they get those by going to the library?
You can check them out from the
Okay.
library, just like a book. I
Okay.
will leave these with you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. First ever comment form that we've ever had. Howard, can we put you under roundtable, or did you want to?
Yeah, I'm going to see where Paul's going to go with this thing.
Okay, so that's appropriate. And then I wanted to add something with Chris under new business, just a discussion of a memo from Ed Sullivan a little later. Okay, so under number 4, approval of minutes. William Gifford.
Boy, it feels like it's at least, oh, we have new guests here. Come on in. Because we had the hiatus of meetings, missing January's meeting, the minutes were actually done way ahead of schedule. Lucky me to have an extra month. And I hope that you've all had copies of those, and I'd certainly like to hear a motion to approve those minutes as written.
I move for approval.
Paul?
Second.
And Steve?
Okay.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Any corrections? Typos?
Whoa, Paul.
Apparently
this is
not
on
this
tape.
time.
This is on tape.
Look, there's none this time. Okay, let's move to.
An extra mouth helped.
Maybe I should get them out earlier. Yeah.
Let's take a vote on these. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So approved. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, because we weren't here, so we have to abstain.
Oh, you abstained. Okay, 2 of you. Okay. Alrighty. But they are approved. So let's go to number 5. Wow, we're moving right along. Old business. Proposed changes to Clackamas Park. Larry Hanlon.
Well, as we noticed, our park flooded. That's a change.
That is a change. I had an engineer from Bonneville Power come down and look at the park with me, and he kind of burst my bubble. He has the feeling that any kind of permanent structure that we put up isn't going to be there in 5 years. So what we kind of recommended was do another boat ramp type thing, or allow people to fish off the existing boat ramp. And as far as the part where the disabled veterans can park their motorhomes at no expense, that's been approved through Parks and Recreation, and it's just I'll keep you up to date how that comes down. But if anybody has any idea about the fishing ramp for the handicapped, please call me, because I don't know where to go with it at this point.
Larry, what kind of a support or conversations are you having with the city? Are they saying yes, move forward?
Yeah, they're saying
look
yes,
into
move
it?
forward, but they don't.
No
They don't have
funds?
they don't have any money for it, and we don't want any money. I think we can go out, and we've had a couple of trade unions offer to put it up. A church has offered to help fund it.
Now,
And,
that funding was originally for just the spot, but this is a new.
no, the funding, the spot shouldn't cost anything but a little bit of administrative cost from the city. But the actual handicap parking, Scotty Guptill, my friend with PG&E, I think I can lean on him a little bit. And I think it's just time to ask our friends, and I don't think we need to go to the city for this. But I need ideas. Rocky, what are we going to do?
Oh, geez. Now he's sorry he came.
What's the big stumbling block?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
The stumbling block is all the ideas I had about building a wooden structure.
Okay.
It's not going to wash. I mean, it's,
might wash.
it'll probably wash. It's not going to stick. The only thing that we found that we could do is to have it on wheels or tracks, so that we could pull it up out of the way. Maybe that's the answer.
I guess what I'm wondering, Larry, is where are you now? Do you have a support team? Is it just on you to do this, or do you have a group, like a committee, working on
I
this
think
with
the
you?
Carpenter Union is very interested, and my neighborhood group will step up to bat as far as that.
Have you thought about talking to the media, the local media, and telling them what you're trying to do, and get some? Maybe that might build some more interest.
We
in
thought
the
a lot
city.
until the park flooded.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really open to discussion. So that's what we have right now, and our neighborhood association meeting is the end of this month, and I'll have more answers there because we've got a kind of little subcommittee that's working on that.
So where I'm going with this, are you trying to look at this as a project for the neighborhood associations? Like
No, for the CIC, for the city,
itself?
but it's not going to take. It's just not going to take a lot of effort. I mean, most of the work is done. Now the next thing is to get it structured, get it approved, and that's on the Park and Recreation Committee right now. So we go to their next meeting and pursue it.
Okay.
But I didn't go to the last meeting and pursue it because the park was flooded. They had their hands full.
Okay.
We have 2 late guests here.
We should talk about. Okay. Why don't you
good.
go ahead? You've got your own microphone. This is mine.
I'll be down there. It's $1, and then I learned something about pancakes.
We did go through the introductions as to who the representatives are and who our guests are, but we did get 2 late guests here. Would ask you to identify yourselves, please.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Martha Schrader. I think most of you know me. I was a commissioner and your state senator, and now I'm hoping to be a commissioner again. And I wanted to say hello to everyone tonight and to let you know if you would like me to come to the neighborhood association to speak and any questions.
Martha, excuse me. I didn't realize you were going to say so much. Please come and use the microphone.
But we also have to be careful that it doesn't look like we're getting into the politics.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And any commissioner will do that.
Hey, Larry. Bill and Larry are good friends. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Martha Schrader. Hey, Kathy, how are you? It's good to see you. I know all of you. I know Rocky's sitting back there. Hi, Rocky. Okay. And Kathy. And Nancy, it's good to see you. We see each other at the gym quite a bit, I know. We work out together. I'm Martha Schrader. I was your state senator. I was your county commissioner, and I'm hoping to be your county commissioner again. And I came tonight because I knew all of your leadership was going to be here, and I wanted to let you know that if you would like me to come out to your groups and speak with you and ask questions, to please, I will be glad to do so. I've got a good young campaign manager who will arrange that for you. But the real reason I'm here is I want to introduce my friend Tina Olson. Tina is a woman veteran, and she's been in Korea. You've been in, come on, tell me. Kosovo, where
Desert
else?
Storm, Somalia, and cleaned up Hurricane Andrew.
And so Tina's son is a Navy SEAL, so we get to brag about him too. And Tina works with me on the Military Child Education Coalition, and through her efforts, we've been able to pull together an entire statewide group of people who are now working with our National Guard and our Army Reserve and Reserve of every, portion of the military to make sure that folks whose children who are deployed, that the kids get what they need. And I would like to take credit for it, but it isn't really me. It was really Tina's work that staffed it. And we brought it home from Washington, D.C.
We did.
So you want to say a few words about that, Tina, real quick?
What we're planning right now is to self-identify every child in this state through Ed Dennis, which is the Department of Education, of deployed soldiers or of veterans. And what this is exactly, we want true advocacy for that child, to keep them in school. But more importantly is right now, since this big event we just had back in November, we have Ms. Shinseki back here, which is the wife of General Shinseki, which is the head of the Department of Veterans Affairs. She kicked the state agenda off, and now since that has been taken off, we have 4 summits scheduled. Our first summit is out in Ontario in Eastern Oregon. And it's going to be a pretty big event. So that would be our first one, and our second one is going to be in Clackamas. We haven't scheduled a date yet, but the third one is going to be the Resiliency Tour, which is going to be up at Clackamas Community College. And that is an author from the DoD. He wrote a book on resiliency of children.
Department of Defense.
Department of Defense. And he wrote a book on the resiliency of military children. And he's going to be back here doing a summit on July 20th. But more importantly, this is a very needed program in the state because of the children that are being left behind in school, especially when one parent is deployed. So we want to make sure that that child has true advocacy.
So Tina's a leader on this, and she lets me tag along with all of her leadership.
Well, I mean, I've also been governor appointed on the military task force.
Yeah,
What is the name of that?
The military task force is out of the House Bill 3191. I've been governor appointed, and I'm set as a chair on that committee to make sure that we create legislation for the military children in the state.
That was a bill that when I was in the other spot,
Yes.
I helped carry and move forward. And I work with Tina all the time. And hopefully, as I get back on the commission, Clackamas, I hope, will continue to be really a leader in veteran services in the state. We're known as the Welcome Home County, and we're trying to make Oregon the Welcome Home State. And I'm hopeful that I can depend on all of you as neighborhood chairs to help us out with that as we move forward with it. And it's so nice to recognize friends tonight and to see all of you here. So I'm probably going to have to say hi and goodbye because it's been a long day. I haven't had any dinner yet. I hope you guys have had dinner. Right. But thank you, Bill, for asking me to come up and speak.
Go ahead, Larry.
Well, that's so, Larry.
I would like to
Any
have your
questions?
card because
Yeah.
myself and Caulfield neighborhood is behind you.
Okay. And
We've
we
discussed that before.
we have before.
Well,
but
it's just as a friend of Martha's, the reason this state is called the Welcome Home State is because of Martha. She has started the veteran advocacy in the state. If it wasn't for her, veterans would not be recognized.
Well, when the Welcome Home Project started, it started up in the VA hospital.
Yeah.
And I was there for the first meeting.
Yeah.
And it outgrew us, and it was a situation where, what are we going to do with this money? And it just took off.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you guys are following through with it.
Well, it's hard, but
That's
you know.
one project that I'm very proud of.
No, it's really key, and you know, my war was the Vietnam era, and I vowed that the folks that were coming back would never get treated the way our troops get treated. It really isn't a matter whether or not you support a war or not; it's how you treat the people who serve because they're doing their duty. And so, you know, it's pretty important. County's been a leader, and I want to get back in my seat so I can continue that leadership.
Nobody hates war more than a soldier.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I've seen enough of it.
You give your card, and then we're going to...
Thank you.
Bill, thank you. And it's good to see everybody.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
letting me stop in. Okay. All right. Okay. Take care, everyone.
Thanks. We'll go on with old business in a minute, but I just wanted to make a comment that it's nice to see Martha here, but we may, as a Citizens Involvement Council, want to be careful so that we may want to extend an invitation during the upcoming election season that anybody's invited to come in so it doesn't look like we're favoring one candidate over another. And so that's something we may want to extend through you if you want to, as you know, people who are running, saying if you'd like to come and address this, just so it's open to anybody. They'll all have the same.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
So under old business, we were moving right forward with Building Common Ground grant. William Gifford.
The Building Common Ground grant was an aspiration of the Oregon City Library, trying to get some money for a grant to develop some programs, and we wrote some letters of support of that. But the bottom line is that they were denied that grant application. It was only for about $2,000, but it would have been a nice thing to raise the profile of the library and so on. So. I think that they're still going to try to do some of the programs that they had outlined on a scaled down version, but just a quick report that grant was not approved.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Item number 6 under new business: handicap parking in downtown. Paul Edgar, he has 10 minutes, and if he needs it all, and 5 minutes for question and answers.
And we do have staff support here for this question.
For what question? For this?
For the issues regarding handicap parking. For finance solutions here.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because that's a minute of your time already. I'm just kidding. If you don't bring cookies, you get cut down on minutes.
Did I have enough of them?
Yes,
Okay.
I can share.
More of these than we have caramel corn, that's for sure.
Okay, why don't you proceed? Set him up at 10 minutes now.
Thank you. Because no one is, and no organization, including Oregon City's Main Street, represents or safeguards the interests of the disabled, the poor, a city will frequently take measures that disproportionately afflict those citizens. As the appointed land use chair of the Oregon City Citizens Involvement Council with oversight in downtown Oregon City, we may be the best organization to make recommendations to right a wrong and bring our city into compliance with regionally accepted understandings for accessibility with the disabled. Just a little note to try to start it out. Next, you'll see a letter from my barber, Al Kelly. I want to make a comment about Al, is that Al spent a lot of his life in an iron lung early, had an iron lung close on his hands. Some of the fingers are missing. But he can't walk. He can hobble. But he's much like a veteran or somebody that's come out of Vietnam or someplace else, but he's very proud. Al was told by Nancy that he couldn't park next to his barbershop anymore with a handicap placard unless he went out and got himself a wheelchair access identification. He's at that level. But what it boils down to, a lot of people go to Al's barbershop because he does not only a good job cutting hair, but he's a small businessman who cares, who's working his butt off, trying to make a living, and never complaining about anything about being handicapped or disabled. Well, right now we've changed the rules. We've started to eliminate disabled parking spots around his shop. And we now changed the rules where you can't park with a handicap placard in downtown Oregon City without paying a parking meter. This is unlike what you see in 9 out of 10 of the other cities around our region. And on the next page, you'll see the disabled parking rules of the city of Portland, and I would like to go down to where it shows metered parking privileges, and you'll see where it says fee and no time at 30 minutes and longer. So if you're in a 30-minute zone in Portland, you can't use your placard. If you're over 30 minutes, you can use your placard and you follow the time rules that are allotted for that area, and you can park free. But in Oregon City, we decided that that was not right. We got to change it. So now people who are used to, in handicapped worlds, using these placards, come to Oregon City and they're getting tickets. And my wife has rheumatoid arthritis, severe rheumatoid arthritis. And sometimes when she's having a flare and it's really bad, she can't hardly walk but a short distance. And I would turn around and I'd say, there's a lot of seniors. There's a lot of people with disabilities at all different levels. But right now, we take a business like Al's Barbershop, and Al says down here, don't punish the whole population of people based upon the actions of a few. The customers and businesses of downtown have already experienced enough challenges with bridge closures and road constructions. We must find a solution that meets everyone's needs, the cities, the merchants, and the customers. Well, that's what we're really talking about. So I put together on the third page a little thing. The question is that the question that needs to be answered, is there a need and a desire to improve on Oregon City's rules, regulations, and capacity to meet the needs associated with disabled parking in our downtown core area. Nancy Bush very nicely wrote me a note kind of explaining her understandings that she's enforcing. It's on the next page. Overseeing parking, city parking estimates, that the business and jurors and visitors, those needs of Clackamas County Courthouse represents more than 30-plus parking spaces for the disabled with DMV-associated disabled parking permits. The challenge is what is right and fair for those who have and display an Oregon Drivers and Motor Vehicles DMV authorized disabled parking permit to ensure fair and responsible access to parking and at the same time provide adequate parking opportunities for our businesses and services community within our core downtown. Has Oregon City allocated adequate enough on-street parking for the disabled with reasonable distances to where we are compliant with the intent of disabled handicap rules, regulations, and laws? People can't walk long distance. If you have a disabled parking area 4 blocks from somebody that's got a severe disability, that's beyond reason. That's just not smart. And this is all about us starting to think smart, because we have to be fair with everyone. Does the city have enough off-street parking, surface parking lots and on-street parking spaces? That's a question. Does the city of Oregon City and the county need to create additional downtown core area parking capacity through creative partnerships with the public and private entities that will eliminate the problems of our users gaining reasonable access to our businesses and services, disabled, handicapped, or not? Should new downtown core area parking structures be envisioned that could help solve the capacity needs and thus help eliminate disabled, handicapped access problems in parking? Should the city review again its downtown parking plan and review the implications it has on our ability to redevelop surface parking lots critical to major redevelopment within our core area? By the way, here is our transportation plan. I've read through it many times. It doesn't say, I will ask you, find where it says disabled in it. You won't. So we put together a plan, and we never ever envisioned or really talked about the problems of the handicapped and disabled, and now we go off onto some of these ventures, changing rules and impacting people with handicap. Is Oregon respectful of the needs of the disabled and handicapped with how its disabled parking permits and rules are currently written in comparison to other municipalities? We can already see it's not even equal to that of Portland, Oregon, or 9 out of 10 of the other regional cities. When we compare ourselves to Portland, Oregon, and most of the other regions, we find an appearance of being out of sync with what others do. They allow the DMV authorized disabled parking permits to park free in most all of the other regional cities at parking meters over 30 minutes durations for a period of 4 hours or less. So next is Nancy Bush's statement that she sent to me. I think you can all read it, but it goes into some of the allocations of spaces and parking, and what you'll get down here that the city has on, you'll get down to the paragraph, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where it says here in Oregon City, we have more than 1,000 employees in our downtown core, 7,000 visitors through the courthouse doors a week, and 70,000 jurors a year. The city has control over 165 on-street stalls and 65 designated permit stalls within the core. We are unable to meet the needs of individual placard holders, whether the holder is a downtown employee, a juror, a visitor. The 30-plus spaces needed per day from 10th to 5th will put the city out of business.
City or businesses?
That's, we've got a problem And I think that the problem shouldn't be all borne on the disabled and the handicapped. And what it boils down to here is that we may need to create new capacity, some alternatives. So on my next page, this was something that I presented to the Urban Renewal Commission, and it was a document, should the Oregon City Urban Renewal District develop a strategy in support of a downtown Oregon City parking structure. And this is kind of like a pie-in-the-sky thought. It is about saying, if we were to take property that's now institutionalized as surface-level parking lot, and we created a parking structure where that was no longer needed, we could take that institutionalized surface parking lot like the one right next to the Masonic Temple. It's a very large lot, runs all the way from Main Street to McLaughlin, and it covers the dirty, ugly side. You could put parking underneath it coming in from McLaughlin, and you could go up to the height of the Masonic building. You could have residential on the top, retail on Main Street. But what you do, if we had a parking structure, then projects like that could be envisioned that could really turn our city around and create something positive in the future. And so not only do we want to solve the problems of handicapped and disabled, but we have an opportunity to think smart at the same time.
Thank you, Paul. I understand Nancy's here, but I had my name up here because I wanted to add to what you said. I was really surprised recently because my business partner Dave's mother is 87. She's got macular degeneration, so she can't see very well, so we have to drive her everywhere. And it wasn't until recently when we took her downtown, because she also has COPD. I guess that's breathing problems. She can't walk too far. And found out that as we were walking away, you cannot use her handicap sticker there as you did in Portland. And I was really surprised. So we had to stop bringing her downtown Oregon City now and take her more downtown Portland because she can't walk very far. So I understand where you're coming from on this. I was surprised. First time I'd ever been told by one of the guys that we're going to have to ticket you if you don't put money in for her, and even though it's been recognized elsewhere. Anyway, should I go to you or Nancy? William?
I've been up there for a long time.
I didn't. Your name's not here. Oh, you're under new business. You're not on handicap. William, we'll get right to you, Nancy.
He was up there for a long time. He can go first.
I have very little to say, Paul, other than one factor that we all need to look at is misuse of these handicap permits. Because I see it all the time. You go in and there's a 16, 17-year-old girl using a handicap parking thing, and the police or parking enforcement's got to spot check these people because it's a big, big problem. And I sit on the Veterans Handicapped Committee at the VA hospital, and that's the big complaint is Portland was just ready to pull out of the program of allowing the free parking because it's just unbelievably abused. So that's just another point.
William.
Thanks for bringing this to our attention, Paul. And thanks for being here tonight, Nancy. I did have a question directly to Nancy, and you had comparisons are not always apples and oranges, and I hope that we are never going to become a Portland, because to me the world is divided into Oregon City and then P-Town. But you were able to provide some statistics regarding the number of Oregonians that have individual placards at 6%, and yet 20% of the cars parked on street in Portland display a placard, 1 in 5 vehicles. And I'm wondering, and just my side comment is, because every additional space that we give up to handicap parking also reduces parking for non-handicapped individuals. And so, and I'm not saying that's good or bad, except that I would like to get a bigger grip on how big the breadbasket is. Do we have any statistics that show how many placard holders there are of cars that are registered in Oregon City?
I don't. Is this
and it wouldn't just be Oregon City, because we have visitors coming from outside of Oregon City, but maybe kind of generally in the area.
I don't have those statistics, no. I've attended a lot of meetings in Portland, and Portland was going to pull the trigger on theirs January 1. They're still working with the Portland Business Alliance, who was a little upset that this hasn't been done back in a couple years ago when they first started talking about it. The issue that we have in Portland is we don't have the available parking for anyone. We didn't have it for the judges, the
Excuse me, you
commission.
said Portland, but you meant Oregon City.
In Oregon City, excuse me. We didn't have it for the judges, which I believe the commission and the city manager have granted to still remain on 8th Street against the courthouse. We have every law enforcement agency within Clackamas County who expects to be able to park on the street, in addition to every juror who is coming to perform their civic duty who does not feel that they should be parking out of the core as well, or you have to excuse me, I've been sick, sorry about that, or have to walk that far. There's awful lot of placards and an awful lot of employees. We never even used to enter the meters on 9th and 8th Street because everyone was taken up with a placard. So it's something that we had to enforce the law. We don't have a special law in our books. And just so that you know, every business in downtown Oregon City, especially every new business, their first 2 requests are a loading zone and a handicap stall. And the handicap stall is always taken by an employee. It's never available for the intended user. The one that is specifically in front of the courthouse, the van accessible, technically you can park there with a regular placard, and it is taken by an employee every day. There are 2 stalls in the parking lot which sit empty because it is not as close for them. The county employee access on 8th Street, you would see every stall along the Verdict and the Caulfield House. Down Main Street in front of the Caulfield House would also be full. I've talked to Al. We've had many, many conversations. He specifically has told me every time he goes to Home Depot, he can never get a stall, but he never sees anyone limping. So I think I understand, I have never seen this letter from Al, and really we have a good relationship, very good relationship. He's a great guy, and I can't help him solve problems if I don't know about them in advance. So I wish he would have brought it to me so we could help try to resolve some of the issues over there. We're returning to parallel parking on 7th as well. So there's going to be, indeed, even less stalls. And unless we can get the employees off the street and limit how some of the stalls are used, there isn't going to be available space to get somebody in. If we can get the employees off the street, open up the stalls, you may be able to take your mother downtown. There might be an available space near where you want to go. It may cost 50 cents for the hour, but it would be available. Maybe I should clarify also, is the law has not changed at all. A new rule to the laws relates to those with disabilities was created due to the abuse, and it was brought forward and presented to the Senate by the Disabled Veterans of America, I believe, in conjunction with City of Portland, Portland Business Alliance, and several other municipalities. They created the wheelchair placard. You can start with there. So that those with limited mobility would still be recognized as not having to plug the meter. The reason why they're not expected to plug the meter is because it was found unreasonable to think they could get out of their vehicles, into traffic, squeeze between cars, jump curbs, and make it down the street to a pay station. Therefore, they were found, a new rule was created that they didn't have to plug the meter. It never has been written anywhere that anyone got free parking. Nobody has the same footprint or the same challenges. That's why every city, it's up to them. Everybody wants to give somebody something, and especially those with disabilities. I think the hard challenge has been you can't selectively enforce it. If you either have a placard or you don't, you either allow businesses to be blocked or you don't. That's the challenge. I'm glad you brought this up.
Well,
Paul.
the request was literally to get to kind of get in compliance with what Portland's doing, and let's say the 9 out of the other 10. I don't necessarily want to use the People's Republic as the best
Portland
example.
Portland is changing, and it's changing quickly. And specifically, at the last meeting I attended there in Portland, they are going to do away with the on-street placard use for free, except for those with the wheelchair placard, because that is the law. They're moving zones out of the area specifically to see how far employees will go for the free parking. And the other challenges are You're federally mandated when you have a parking lot such as the one outside to have how many stalls you're going to have. That's for off-street. On-street, you are not required to supply ADA accessible stalls.
But it's kind of reasonable, and this is the point. There's a reasonableness of all of this. If we have a allocational methodology for parking lots where we have a degree or a number of handicap spaces, it seems to me that we should have some reasonableness of allocation, of understanding, of providing access. This is what I'm calling asking just for reasonable access for the disabled and handicapped, so they can find places where they can easily or responsibly get from their car to a business and do what it's doing. But if we just did it like Portland's doing and had 4-hour limits or whatever, 2-hour limits, whatever the time zone is, and so the people at the courthouse can't be down there for 6 hours or all day in a spot where they shouldn't be, that's what Portland's doing.
Okay.
And if we did that, part of our problem would go away.
I'd like to touch base on that. That's not entirely what Portland's doing. Right now, Portland isn't doing anything. What they are going to do is they are moving to a 4-hour enforcement. That's going to be in a zone out of the retail core, because 4-hour parking is not good for business, whether you're disabled or not. It simply means that employees move their cars for lunch and switch to the other side of the block for the other 4 hours. We've seen it downtown. That's why we have 2-hour parking down there. That's what's retail friendly. So Portland is moving their zone to some areas outside of the retail core where they're going to allow placards to still be on the street. They're going to monitor these to see if they're the same cars they've been tracking, to ensure that how far the employees are walking for free parking. In addition to that, I was touching base on parking lots. When you build a lot or when you build a building, you are mandated on how many handicap stalls you have. If you are a private lot owner and you are banking on renting those stalls out, they're going to sit empty. They're going to sit empty, and you're not going to collect that revenue to be able to pay your rent or your lease or your mortgage on that lot, because we're not enforcing our rules. Portland has a few instances like that right now where they're getting a little backlash from some of the private lot owners. And then the smart parks, there is no discounted rate in the handicap stalls. When I go to downtown Portland, every stall is empty, but maybe 1 or 2 in the smart park. They charge the same rate for everybody.
We've got some other people who want to ask questions. I was just going to quickly ask, isn't Portland concerned that it's going to stop some of the elderly and those with disabled permits and make them go to malls instead?
I don't think that the elderly can get a spot if they wanted to, because there's none available. And because it's primarily
I'm talking about handicap ones, but yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Exactly. Because they're not available, they're taken up primarily, all the on-street is taken up by employees, and any on-street stall that may have been created due to a lack of a parking lot in an area is generally taken by the employee who gets there at 7:30 and not by the customer.
Michael Berman, you're up.
Paul, you have a great ability to gather data and present a very powerful presentation. And this one, I think that the thrust of this is that it brings parking back to the forefront where it should never leave, like a fire or a flood. Oregon City's got horrible parking. Oregon City's always had horrible parking, but Oregon City used to have a vibrant business district, and I think there's some other issues that we should talk about probably at a later time regarding the 7,000 courthouse visitors who may or may not be customers outside of the courthouse and take up a lot of parking.
Channel 8, Channel 2, Channel 6.
Exactly. So that's another thing that we should probably bring up. This is great stuff, and it's really important stuff. I grew up shopping for my uncle who spent a year in Iron Lung as well and didn't come out such the great jazz musician that he was when he went in. And so I sensed the frustration, and I remember that as a teenager, sensing the frustration even at Westland Thriftway and Oregon City Safeway. So I get it. I also get that my I have a family member, my brother had very severe sleep apnea. The Army doesn't like that. They gave him a 70% disability. He wanted to stay in. He didn't have a choice. He has a placard. He doesn't use it very often. He can walk pretty far. So there is some issues where maybe there are people with placards that can walk very well. On the other hand, once my uncle was in that wheelchair, he could cruise for blocks and not have any problem getting to anywhere. So I get where Al's coming from, where he chose not to be. He could probably sit in a wheelchair if he wanted to, but he had more mobility. He's a non-wheelchair using person, and to force him to have to get that placard is kind of a strange deal. So there's a lot of dynamics to this that probably we're not going to solve tonight. But the main thrust is bringing this back to the forefront and making it a topic of relative importance.
Okay. Kathy Hogan.
Yes, I have a handicapped mother, and I can tell you it's difficult to get a wheelchair out, and to do that, it starts making you a handicap. And we're all going to be there at one time or another, so maybe it's something that we need to discuss. And if people are parking down there that are working down there, are they paying for that parking spot full time? Or are they getting tickets like they should if they're not paying? Is there a place that these workers can go and have the trolley pick them up and take them to work, where they could park and pay the trolley something? Are there any other options? Are there other options of
30 to 40 of the employees have the placards. They're the ones on the street. In addition to, well, we did eliminate a few through this. And I think Al, we recently did just let him know, because we received a complaint about him not having the wheelchair placard. And I know that he qualified for it. I didn't plan on talking about Al tonight because I didn't want to bring up any names, but Paul, since you mentioned his name and it's in this, I will go ahead and elaborate a little bit. We've had a couple of customers, 2 establishments down there, that were using somebody else's placard. Mm-hmm. One of them was Al's customer. And so when he came up, we give everybody a one-time warning, and we explain the rules, and we let them know that we want you to patronize. And once you explain it to people, they get it. I can't tell you how many. I talked to somebody today, and she said, well, just because I have a placard doesn't mean I don't have 50 cents in my pocket. Maybe some do, maybe some don't. I'm not entirely sure. But when the gentleman came up, he was using somebody else's placard. We did keep his placard. He had to have that person come in and pick it up, and after 30 days we'll turn it into the DMV. But he in turn filed a complaint against Al and said, well, he doesn't have a wheelchair placard, and he's out there parked. So it prompted us to say, Al, we told you this in March. Could you please, I know you've been dragging your feet, but could you please just get the placard? And he did, and we're thankful, because he can park wherever he wants with it.
How did they know that he was using somebody else's placard? They just walked up and
spot check.
asked him?
Yeah, we have the ability to run all that in our office, absolutely. And I've since talked to Lloyd Purdy about this, and he's requested that we do a warning on street. We've drawn up some little stickers, and so we write the ticket, we write the placard number up the side just for our reference. We write it as a warning, and it's kind of a good faith. We don't know whose it is. We're not going to check it. And it tells them to contact the local parking authority, much like the DMV website does, because each city is different. No law is going to fit each city. We don't have the parking Portland does. City of Vancouver's already changed, and other municipalities are. Oregon City is a very small footprint to be able to meet everybody's needs, and it's physically impossible to. I do think that we could probably do a better job at making sure when our private lots are restriped, some people aren't going to like this, when our private lots are restriped, that they are meeting the rules and putting in those handicap stalls. Maybe they've never had them there, and so they continue to restripe every year, but that's dictated from the building official, and so that's a conversation that I plan on having with him. I talked to the old building official about it, but we were never able to tackle that. That doesn't mean that those spots are going to be free. It means they're rented, they're on private property. That placard's intent was to get you the closest to the doctor's office, closest to the mall, closest to the theater, closest to the business you're patronizing on private property.
Okay.
That was the intent.
Two more people up. Tom O'Brien.
Yes, I concur with many of the comments that Mike made. The issue goes far beyond handicap parking. We obviously don't have adequate parking at all. Using Nancy's numbers, the 7,000 visitors plus 1,347 jurors, or for the jury pool, who come in weekly,
That's
plus 1,000
70,000.
employees of the businesses, means that we have close to 10,000 people a week trying to use 260 or 220, 230 parking spaces. Doesn't take any rocket scientist to figure out that that doesn't work. Since the county is having such a negative impact on our business community, it's my belief that we should be approaching Clackamas County, who is the major source of the problem, and ask them to join us in building a facility that will accommodate not only their needs, but the needs of the businesses in our community. As far as Al is concerned, I know Al has a next-door neighbor who has 2 vehicles parked illegally, has for years, and nothing's ever done about it, and no tickets have ever been issued. And that's the bicycle shop. They have a bike parked right in front of the elevator, and they have a bike parked down at the next corner. That's all I have to say.
I think we're trying to address those in the sign code.
I think that, Mike, are you back up? I see your name here.
Well, it's never taken off.
Oh, okay, it's never been taken off. Okay, I guess
You
that
gotta take it off.
concludes the,
Who wants to talk?
Mike wants to talk, okay, well, I thought he already did. Sorry.
I just want to concur and affirm what Tom just said. But also, I think that is important. With the speaking of the county, it's a great thing to bring up. Let's keep parking at the forefront, at least for downtown. I know this is a neighborhood meeting, and there's lots of neighborhoods that are out. Downtown is just a very sticky, small part of this, but it may end up reflecting up in parking lots and up on other parts of town. Specifically, downtown is a large issue right now. With construction, it's going to be a little bit tougher for a little while. We still have 43% permit parking, which is higher than any other city in Oregon. And often those are double dippers, and that's another subject. But where you might be a professional that works with the county and need to be by your office. And that speaks to all of us. It's hard to be a business owner or a shopkeeper or an employee and park 9 or 10 blocks away, and then you got to make that dash to the store and it's pouring down rain, and you've got 4 or 5 bags of produce or maybe some fabric or something for another kind of store or something, and it's difficult without traveling on foot with these kinds of necessities for your business. So parking far away may not be the right answer. I think parking options at the garages, parking structures could be an option to talk about, but we definitely need to keep talking about parking at it at any chance we can.
Okay.
I would like to make one last comment. Could I?
Yes.
It's just that that first paragraph, the question that needs to be answered, is there a need and a desire for us to keep this issue alive? And that's something that this group needs to talk about. It's definitely, in my perception, and that's the reason why I did this, was to spell it out. I believe it's an opportunity, not a problem. I believe it's an opportunity. And I think if we think smart about this, we can realize that this is an opportunity for Oregon City to do a better job, address the needs of the disabled, and find new opportunities to alleviate the problems permanently.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my question to everyone here, all the neighborhood representatives, is, and even Nancy Bush, where do we go from here? I mean, Paul, you led this conversation on that. Are you asking that we have a group here consider this and see if the CIC should be involved in any recommendations, or are you going to take this to the City Commission? Where are you suggesting we go with this, or does anyone have?
Well, Nancy had as part of the original parking study, there was it said in here that you were supposed to organize a subcommittee to monitor and to keep up with the parking needs.
The city is.
The city is. And this was, I believe, almost your responsibility to put together
Correct.
that committee. And in this sense, I would look at this as saying, again, this is an opportunity. I've asked around, who is on this committee? Is there a committee? And no one seems to know that there is one. And if there is one, it's silent. And so right now we've got a serious problem, and we've got to let's convert it into an opportunity.
Okay, should I comment?
Yes, please.
There is not currently a committee. The committee was going to be formed with the original stakeholders that sat through the 1.5-year-long study. And there were several things that were mapped out in that study in 2008. That in 2008, when that was done, it did not consider the bridge closure. It did not consider Main Street two-way traffic. It did not consider a lot of the construction that's going on down there. So we got to hit the streets running, preparing for that bridge closure, and where am I going to move 25 permit holders, and creating additional parking and moving things to the other end of town. And with that, then came the some of the Main Street construction. So some of the there's specific guidelines to that study on how to go about implementing some of the stuff downtown, but unfortunately some other things jumped in front of it because we simply didn't have a choice on what we were going to do with all the employees and some loss of spaces and creating new spaces. And we've been working very closely with Main Street, Oregon City, and Lloyd Purdy. Obviously now it's a performing Main Street. The businesses down there believe so much in their performing Main Street that they tax themselves to pay Lloyd's salary. And Main Street believes very much that they would like available parking. And the one thing everyone here needs to remember, that if you're not walking, your customer is.
By listening to all this tonight, it sounds like obviously there is a problem, but it sounds like Portland is going to, and other cities, as you said, are moving towards eliminating this, so it doesn't look like we really have a say in that. So I guess I'm asking Paul or you, is that committee going to come into effect? And so should we focus our efforts towards helping you with that committee, saying get some people from the neighborhoods, or what's the process?
It's probably going to be comprised of the same people, which was the county, their state, county, business owners, property owners from downtown. There's some representatives from McLaughlin because they are who are primarily affected by the lack in parking downtown. There's about, Nancy, you were at all those meetings, about 20 people on that, more, 25 people on that, a lot of people. Sheriff's office.
Are you open to any volunteer representation from the CIC so we can keep informed if someone here cares to volunteer?
I haven't put a whole lot of thought. I have a meeting with Lloyd next week. He tells me he's on vacation. I was talking to Linda Orzen about that today. She didn't think he was, so he might have been fibbing to me not to meet with me this week. But
Super Bowl week,
it's a little funny. I have a meeting with Lloyd on how we would like to go about that, and then we were going to go and talk to Nancy Ide. I believe she has all the records of everyone that attended all of those meetings and put it out there that we want to start meeting again.
You might add, too, that any of these meetings would be open to the public.
Oh, definitely open to the public.
We could know.
Just like this.
Does anyone here want to see something more than that? I see Larry's name's up here. Larry, why don't you go next?
What my recommendation is, and what the city of Aurora in Colorado did, was they put a 2-hour limit on the parking passes, and they booted the car so they couldn't move the car. They had to pay the ticket, and it stopped it.
For employees?
They hand employees.
For
It's
disabled.
a 2-hour parking spot. I don't care who works there.
Yeah.
Well, they have to take a lot of boots.
They had a lot of boots. They did.
Boots are cheap.
Yeah. And that's the answer. We don't enforce the laws we have.
That's right.
And I think if you got down there and enforced the laws we have and started spot checking, when somebody comes out to get your car, the parking meter guy goes up and said, "Can I see your driver's license?" You match the number with a parking sticker. And if it's his wife's permit, that's a $1,000 fine.
Yes, well, the law allows you to presume that the vehicle owner is the one displaying the placard. We are not writing tickets at handicapped stalls. Very rarely.
Well, you should.
If we get complaints, we are. And believe me, the businesses tattle on each other. The insurance agent's using his grandma's or somebody's this, or we get a lot of it. It's people you know. Believe me, I'm always surprised who it is that is abusing those. It's at the meter. We're not writing it for using a placard. We don't know who's using the placard because they're not at the vehicle. We don't presume the vehicle owner is using the placard. We write the ticket for the expired meter. If they have a placard showing, we write the warning with a sticker that says to inquire, and then again, if they end up getting another, they won't get a warning the second time at the meter. The second time they get the ticket, that they will get a warning and they will get educated at the front counter. That isn't always going to solve everybody's problem down there, though.
I have all the
relates
respect
to
in the
ADA.
world for you, but if we don't enforce our laws, nothing's going to change.
Okay.
I agree. I agree.
Let's move to Nancy.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I'll make this short, but there are a couple of things I just wanted to point out, and that is that we have a very, very small code enforcement and parking division, and Nancy's department not only does parking with one full-time employee down there, who, by the way, he is in hot water all the time because of the tickets he issued. This is such a kind of a controversial situation. I don't think you can win. But that being said, they're also in charge of doing code enforcement throughout the entire city. And I think we all know that there are many, many parts of our community that could use a little bit more enforcing of the code to clean up areas that aren't quite as good looking as others. So I think the other thing I wanted to make a point of is that the parking study that was done was very, very comprehensive. And I don't think the parking, and I would encourage you to read it. I believe it's on our website. In terms of building a parking lot, the city does not have the money, and there's a financial analysis in the parking study that has to do with when would be the right time to build a parking lot. Now, maybe things have changed. We can always go restudy. But the other thing that was going to support having a parking manager that could coordinate all the parking amongst the private parking lots and the on-street to make it work all together, to have that individual plus do committee meetings, et cetera, that takes more people power. Mm-hmm. And raising the meter rates was going to help pay for that. And we just raised the meter rates because of all the Archbridge closure, because of the construction downtown. We thought, well, maybe the best timing to do the meter rates increase would be with the new parking meters themselves. So we have to get more money to provide more resources to do more things downtown. So I just want you all to have a little bit of understanding for our financial situation here. Nancy's department is funded through. She has very limited revenues. So just wanted to. It would be great if we could solve all these problems, but it's really, really complicated.
It sounds that way. It sounds like it's more of a city issue for city commission than it is in consideration than it is in neighborhoods, because all our neighborhoods don't have the parking like they do downtown.
Right.
So it sounds like it's something the business group. I mean, we all have opinions on it, but it sounds like that's something the city, through the code enforcement, has to address.
I have my own opinions on it as well. I mean, believe me, we don't feel good about writing people tickets, booting people's vehicles. Unfortunately, we don't really have a choice sometimes. And educating people one person at a time has proven to work out very well. In all actuality, when people come to the front counter, they come up, you get to educate them, and then they get it. And it's not hearsay, secondhand from somebody told somebody something. They actually hear it from the authority, the parking authority.
Okay.
But if you find them $500,
he likes finding people.
Paul's aunt can do what she needs to do. And I'm serious.
Yeah.
The revenue will put on a couple more parking folks and make it a revenue source because it's needed. And it's not doing our city any good to have people that work in the courthouse park down there for 8 hours in a handicap spot. Make it a 2-hour parking space and let them ride the trolley down from I think we could probably swing, taking a piece of ground down by where the parking facility is and leasing it and putting cars in there and running the trolley. That makes more sense than running people out of the town. I mean, I've had this problem for 50 years in this town. It's never gotten any better.
Sounds like you wrote Mitt Romney's speech about, I like to fire people. That's fine. Anyway, let's move
just
on.
for the record, though, that the the fees collected for misuse of a handicap placard was just changed January 1. It was $890, and the judge's discretion, she could only lower it to $450. Those fees go back to the state. They don't stay in the parking division. They go to the state. And they were just reduced January 1st. They are $435, no discretion from the judge. But the assessments have been increased also that go to the state. So they get the fine and the assessment. Does that sound right, Chris? Yes. They get the majority of the money, and the city gets a small assessment on that, and that actually goes to the court and does not stay with the parking division.
I apologize.
Okay.
And that is the law.
All right. I had also asked under new business to add something about a memorandum from Ed Sullivan. I'm not sure how many of you saw this, but on December 13th, Ed Sullivan sent out a memorandum regarding amendments to voting requirements with recognized Oregon City neighborhoods. Now, this is something close to my heart. We had a committee a year ago to look at our bylaws of CIC, and we talked about the fact that there obviously are some considerations for neighborhood associations for their rules. And I'm not going to read this all. I only have the first page of it, but it just said, his introduction is, the City Commission has adopted a series of resolutions formally recognizing various neighborhood associations throughout the city. The typical recognition resolution includes, as an exhibit, an agreement between the neighborhood and the city. Each agreement contains a series of criteria for formal recognition and includes the following provisions regarding membership and voting. Number 1, any resident, property owner, business licensee, or representative of a nonprofit organization or any others who show cause for interest in the boundary of a neighborhood shall be entitled to membership. And as you all know, he's got a footnote here. That happened in Park Place when people came in from outside the city limits. Number 2, any member who is at least 18 years of age shall have 1 vote on any matter to be decided by the association. Ed just continues that these criteria for membership have typically been incorporated in the various neighborhood bylaws. I think they were generally made all at the same time. Some concerns have been raised that allowing for such broad-based membership and conferring voting rights on all, quote, interested parties sets the bar too low. He puts, it opens the door to individuals, even though those who have no connection with the city of Oregon City, who may not have the same investment in the neighborhood as residents and or businesses owners, to direct association objectives. To address these concerns, some neighborhood bylaws authorize neighborhood subgroups, such as steering committees, to take action on particular issues on behalf of the association. These actions have led to confusion about which entity or subgroup is recognized by the City Commission to speak on behalf of the association, and to possible conflicts between the steering committee and the association itself. So this memo recommends some revisions to the city conditions for recognizing neighborhoods that, if similarly incorporated into individual neighborhood bylaws, would alleviate these concerns. I hope you all understand that what he's trying to say here is the fact that those were built into some of our neighborhood association laws when they first gave them to us. Some neighborhoods, like I believe McLaughlin has, limited it to only those who live within their boundaries. But I'd like to see how many people would be interested in putting together a group of people, a committee here, to look into all our bylaws. Should we be looking at this, what Ed Sullivan says, and adding something to your bylaws that limits it to people within the boundaries or businesses who have an interest? Because as he said last May, that's such a nebulous term. Anybody who has an interest. So I think that all of us need to maybe, as a group, maybe bring in our bylaws, or maybe have a group and go over our bylaws. And I wanted to find out how many people would be interested in a committee of that nature. I see, Mike, you're waiting.
Yeah. I think, I know I definitely am. I'm curious, isn't there a collection of these perhaps somewhere that they're up where they're?
I think the most biggest collection is what Chris may have on the website. I don't know how current they are. I know Kathy is going to talk. She's been here since
Day one.
Since
Yeah,
Dirk
right.
came to Oregon
Yeah.
City.
God, since-
Kathy.
Yeah. My bylaws are on the website, and if Tom wants to change them, fine.
What
If
I'm
not,
getting
I'm
at
not
here is not if
interested.
somebody just wants to change them, fine. Is should we have a group get together and
Well,
and
no,
look
what
at
I'm
some of
saying
these
is, if he
bylaws?
wants to do that and get in the group, I'm not interested in changing them. I did them once, and I'm, if my neighborhood association wants to change them, I will put it before them. I have put it before them, and if they want to, then I would let them work on it, because our needs might not fit your needs.
Again, and that's right. Each one needs to be individually different. I'm not saying here that we need to tell everybody how to do theirs, but I'm just wondering if we should all take a second look at our neighborhood bylaws as a group and say, well, this is why we have it, and see if there's some similar words, as Ed Sullivan is encouraging here, to help with that. I see William's got his name up there. And not to tell anybody how to do it, but we need to find some way to resolve some of the issues that have come up. And I think Mike had told me he doesn't even know if there's some for downtown.
Since we're not necessarily, there's 11 neighborhoods, and then there's the Chamber of Commerce in downtown. I was invited or recommended, I guess, from Lloyd to join here, and I'm glad I'm here. But it's kind of like if you join the Elks or a fraternal organization, they might give you a packet, and I never really had that. And so I've kind of come to these last 5 meetings ad hoc and enjoyed it, and I participate and listen to what the neighbors, my business neighbors, have to say when we're all walking around or meeting. But we don't really. I don't think that we have a bylaw set, and I'm assuming that we should have a set.
For
even
downtown.
though, do we have a neighbor? Okay.
William's up next.
First, to address your issues, Mike, is that when the CIC was reorganized a few years ago, part of the representation was a representative from the Chamber of Commerce, and of course they have their own bylaws, and a representative from the Oregon Main Street Association. Oregon Main Street Association has bylaws as well. So those would be the bylaws under which the Main Street representative would be operating.
Are those on the website right now? Do you know for him to see them?
I don't know where the Main Street.
I don't have Main Street. They might be on the website under Main Street, Oregon City, but I don't have them. Nor the chamber.
From my perspectives, and I've talked a little bit with Chris about this, is that there were boilerplate bylaws for all the neighborhood associations when they were initially established in the 90s. And yet the city, in its infinite wisdom, has given each neighborhood the latitude of making modifications to each individual bylaws. There are some things that ought to be consistent throughout all the bylaws. The purpose of the meetings, that's both land use and social and so on. That there should be some consistency in the criteria for membership. There are other things that ought to be flexible depending on the makeup of the association, whether or not you have a chair and a vice chair, whether or not you have co-chairs, whether or not you have a secretary treasurer or individual offices, whether or not, when you meet, those are more variable things, whether or not you have a single land use chair or you have a land use committee. Those are variable things that really ought to be decided at the neighborhood level. There are other things such as the voting privileges, the membership privileges, and things like that really should be consistent in what they are. Whether or not I think it'd be a dandy idea if we could just have a we had one last year, a minute work session, a bylaws work session. But to do it a little more structured, where everyone would have a copy of their own bylaws,
That's what I'm suggesting.
and we could even look at them in parallel, and have them all, so we could all be looking at and decide as collectively as a group which things the neighborhoods ought to have autonomy over. Whether or not how they want to structure their meetings, how frequently they want to have meetings. Those types of things are really up to the individual associations.
Right.
However, other things really should have a more clear commonality, I believe, amongst them.
Maybe
So-
resolve issues and conflict.
Exactly. So I would recommend that you appoint a committee to review the bylaws, and then we have another work session and look at all the bylaws and
Okay.
decide what do we want in common and what do we want flexibility on.
Yes, Chris.
I would recommend that you maybe table this until the March meeting. I've been invited to a meeting on February 29th with the city manager and the mayor to discuss the neighborhood bylaws.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Cool.
you might want to wait and
All right.
see what they have to say at that meeting.
Ingrid.
We attended one of the city commission meetings, and it sounded as though the city commission wanted to tell us what the bylaws were going to be. That
They initially told us what they were going to be.
I know, but I think they think that we're out of control and that we need to go back and they can tell us where the limits are again. But I may be wrong. So it'll be interesting after their meeting to find out what is coming up.
Can you tell us more about, I mean, since that's discussing neighborhood bylaws, shouldn't some neighborhood representatives be there, Chris, at some, if they're going to discuss
Chris
neighborhood
said.
bylaws?
Think so at this point. I was invited
Okay. As
by
the
the city
CIC
manager
liaison.
to meet with the mayor and him.
The problem that I have is I don't think that I have the authority as the chairman to make those decisions. I think it needs to be made by the Caulfield Neighborhood Group.
Absolutely.
I have no authority for that. Who am I?
Authority for
That's
what?
what I'm
To make
saying.
decisions for my neighborhood.
No, but what we're saying and what I think William said, and it's probably what the city's going to say too, is that we do need to have some items that are standard. I mean, do you want everybody, if you had
I
a,
agree with that.
Come in
But
and-
we take what the city tells us.
The
that
boilerplate
The
and the-
boilerplate, we take it back to the neighborhood and they approve it. I can't approve it. I don't need to go to those meetings.
but the city, I think, I see.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But the city is going to create some of their own rules that they want
Right. us
us all to live by. Those, we don't vote on our neighborhood. That's because if you can't vote for mayor or commissioners, they don't want other people coming in and voting to control neighborhoods either.
I agree with
That
that.
would be one aspect. To address both Larry and Ingrid's issues about the city telling us what to do, I think we need to remember that the neighborhood associations and the CIC serve at the pleasure of the city commission. I'm sorry that our commissioner had to leave early, but it's not so much of them telling us what we can and can't do, other than the fact that they are the ones that created us. It's like a child telling your parent, you can't tell me what to do. Well, the parent says, yeah, I can. They have every right in the world to tell us exactly what our bylaws could be. And I think it's generous of the city's part to give us as much latitude as we have in how we structure our own neighborhood association bylaws.
And
I
funding.
totally agree with that.
William, Goal 1 really speaks to that, and it doesn't speak the way you spoke. And it speaks about the fact that the city has an obligation to reach out to us by state laws and regulations. And what we are is to be that vehicle within, and they spell out a citizens involvement type council within Goal 1. So I think that you're a little off base there, but that's not the first time.
Thank you for that considered opinion, Paul.
Moving right along. Okay, my conversation will be tabled until they have that meeting on February 29th to see what direction or what thoughts they had. I think I would be in agreement with the fact that they would set down some commonalities between all of us, and that's something that we can all discuss. But
And what flexibilities we have.
yeah, and what flexibilities. And again, when I brought this up, it wasn't meant to tell any of you how to rewrite yours or what to include or whatever. It's just that that so many of you have been around. Like I thought Kathy has so much experience.
Yeah.
So does William, because you've been, as he said, been around since the dirt. And you know a lot of bylaws. You've seen them, so you
Oh, yeah.
probably have some good input.
From the
But
beginning.
for right now, Kathy, why don't you,
I have something else I wanted to bring up on
other
your
than
business.
this.
Other than
okay,
this.
let's conclude this. William, your name's here. Did you have anything else to say? Okay, then the conversation on that's closed until they have that meeting, and Chris can report back to us. Okay, moving.
Business, other new business.
Other new
I
business?
just- yeah.
Is it
It's
business
just-
or roundtable?
No, I think it's business. Chris can maybe help me on this because it's a concern I have and reading the Oregon City paper and in the police blotter all the time, and it seems like in the last 2 to 3 weeks we've had, at least close in my area, 3 suicide runs for consistently.
runs?
Where people are going to commit suicide and the police have had to respond. Is there anything within this community that is helping these people, helping the police deal with them, or help the neighborhoods to deal with it? Because, if it's close to your home, this is happening, frightens me. It means I'd like a 6-foot fence around my house with something above it. Because,
Can't kill yourself here.
it is in, and I've seen it last week's paper that they've had, and it's been around Leland, Central Point, and some other areas, home, I don't know. But it's been a concern to me that, an outreach to these people so that, we don't have something escalating and it's like it's happening too much. And I was wondering if there was any outreach
For the
that's happening.
for the person that's attempting the suicide?
Yeah, and the police having to deal with it. I mean, it's...
Well, that's our job.
Are you asking if there's a proactive
But,
program?
the thing, because, if it's in your neighborhood and it's happening close in your neighborhood more frequently,
Yeah, find 'em.
it's kind of scary. Because I don't want to have to deal with somebody,
You mean public education?
Yeah.
I think that's where she's leading.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Ray. See, told you to stay in the audience.
Kathy, I have an answer, but I don't want to take up time, so.
Okay.
After the class, I'll talk to
Okay,
you.
yeah, because it is a concern.
I'm not sure how Chris could answer that.
I know.
Except to bring it to the attention of the...
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
bring it-
don't have a
Yeah.
answer.
Well, if it was in your area.
I mean,
I'd probably-
unfortunately,
It's
normally
happening.
regarding a suicide, we don't know about it until we get that 911 call.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's aftermath so that they don't go and do something again because they haven't been reached.
Well, they'll only do that once.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's handouts available, I could check
Yeah.
about precursors towards somebody that's thinking about it.
Well, and if they're in your neighborhood, we need some information so that we can, know what to do.
Well, obviously, I mean, if that does happen and we're able to get them out of the home, they're not left in the home. They are, taken to a medical facility. So
Okay.
then there is follow-up. So.
Okay, that's...
Okay. Moving right along, now that we're half hour over where I thought we were going to be, Ray, you might pass around some more of that popcorn to everybody. It's going to be a while. But let's move right to Nancy Kreshar.
Okay, well, I left some little presents at your desks.
Oh, that's the candy. No.
Not the caramel corn. The first thing I wanted to talk about, which has nothing to do with any of the papers I left at your places, is the City Commission adopted the new Water Master Plan at their last meeting. And the next step of the City Commission's work will be to do some outreach on water rates and have a public discussion about what the priorities are for funding in the water division and at what rate this community is comfortable with in order to meet our needs. So you'll see more about that. I'm just kind of giving you a heads up. The next thing I wanted to share with you is we've been continuing to work on the Oregon City Transportation System Plan update. And there's a flyer at your desk that you'll also get in your water utility bill. It's actually just your utility bill. And at the bottom, I want you to particularly note there's a website at the bottom. If you go to there, you can, there's a question of the month where you can respond. There's also, you can report areas of concern that you have regarding any place in the city in terms of transportation issues. So please go to the website. And the other very important thing about the TSP is we're having our first public open house, and that will be on February 27th, right here at City Hall. So you'll be seeing more information on that as well. But mark that down. Mark it on your flyer. February 27th, 5 to 7 at City Hall will be a public open house.
All right, Tom O'Brien, what have you?
The other thing I might mention about the transportation system plan is there are two committees that will be working on the project. One is the technical advisory committee made up of many other jurisdictions, including Oregon City, the county, Metro, TriMet, etc. And then there will be another committee made up of the stakeholders of Oregon City. And the primary representatives on that, from a citizen perspective, is the Transportation Advisory Committee. There are 8 or 10 members on the Transportation Advisory Committee at this time, and they will all be participating. And I know I've announced before, if there are others that are interested in participating in that, please let me know. Then the next thing I'd like to go to is
So you have 2 TACs, don't you? You have a technical advisory committee and a traffic advisory committee.
Yeah.
The citizens. Yes.
Actually, we're
but they're
calling
both
it
called
we're
TAC,
calling
huh?
it a technical advisory team, and a
Oh,
stakeholder
that's very
advisory
tactful.
team.
Yeah, it's very tactful.
Oh, team. So we've got the tat and the sat. So this is sort of late notice, but it has been. I think ODOT issued a news release the other day. They're holding a public open house Wednesday night, February 8th, at the Pioneer Community Center.
Tomorrow night.
And is that tomorrow? No,
Wednesday.
night.
This Wednesday.
And their message is to try to provide as much information as possible about all of the projects that are going on in Oregon City that have something to do with ODOT. The one, of course, that's most visible right now is the Arch Bridge project. They'll be providing updates on that. They are also going to be paving McLaughlin Boulevard between 10th Street and down through the Kanema neighborhood this spring and summer, and they'll have a presentation on that. They'll also be, and then the other projects that they're involved in is the Main Street Improvements Project and the Jug Handle. And so we will have Oregon City staff presenting information, details, progress on the Main Street project that we're working right now on one side between 5th and 6th on Main Street. And then we'll also have a booth set up about the Jug Handle project. So I want to move on next to the Jug Handle project. And the thing that is you guys have already heard about, but you're going to be so sick of hearing this from me until this is over, is that we have a 4-day closure coming up on Highway 213.
I'm going to Las Vegas. I don't care.
Good idea, Larry. So this is going to affect a lot of people, and I want you to really, really think about taking an alternate route if you have to go through Oregon City that day, or those 4 days. And, yes?
I want to talk to you about that.
Okay. So we have this flyer that you're going to be seeing all over. One of the important things I wanted to share with this committee is that we have a public outreach plan that is about 35 pages long, and I want to assure you that there's a very, very formal, well-organized public outreach plan, and you'll start hearing more and more and more about it. We've got a lot of radio stations that are going, lots of ads on the radio, and I'm just trying to give you guys some assurance that there's a lot of thought that's going into this, so it's not something like, oops, oopsie daisy, we closed the highway. But it is going to take word of mouth and to really stress the importance of how bad the congestion can be if you don't consider another plan for those days.
Okay. I have to say I'm totally astounded. Everybody else in the city of Oregon City has ways to get down to Highway 99. You've got a lot of people coming in from Redland, but especially up Holcomb, from Oak Tree, from Trailview, from Parlow Crest. All those people normally would come down Holcomb and go straight across. And it looks like, from what I'm just seeing here, they're going to close Abernathy Road through traffic. So that means that everybody coming from Holcomb is going to have to go up 213 and merge in with traffic that's already going to be backed up by 213. I mean, we're currently using Abernathy Road now, a lot of us, but that's going to close during this?
Well, you can also take Clackamas River Drive, Forsyth down, too.
But it still means that you're still going to end up through this intersection right here. If you want to get out of town. We were all thinking of going camping, but at the same time, trying to get, if you close Abernathy, why are they going to close Abernathy Road?
I have not made these decisions.
I know, but I just wonder why.
These decisions have been made by ODOT and county and professional traffic engineers that are determining what is the best route for the detour traffic.
Just so you see, I mean, anybody who's looking at this map, if you see that if you want to get to Highway 99, now you have to go back over to 213 and go all the way up to where they're doing the construction to come back to 99. There's no way to get to 99. From Holcomb.
Tom, Carver's going to look real nice to you.
Tom, if you'll recall when the chip truck turned over.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. Abernathy, people were trying to find any route that they could to get through. They gridlocked Washington, they gridlocked Abernathy, and the county trucks were not able to get out of the county shops.
Mm-hmm.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason they're going to close off Abernathy will be to use it for emergency access. So, if there's a fire up in your area, we can get the fire trucks down there. We can get the ambulances through there to get up to the hospital. So, they're going to leave it shut so it doesn't gridlock at Washington and at Redland.
I can understand that. I was just thinking, how else would somebody in Holcomb? You could go out to Bradley, but Bradley takes you to Redland, and you still have to come back.
You can go out Clackamas River Drive out to Barton, or to Carver.
Take
your fish and roll.
I think I don't want this to just kind of
I know, it just
disintegrate the
surprised me.
conversation.
You'll
But
get to know Carver.
everybody is going to be affected by this if you're driving through Oregon City on those 4 days, and I can't stress that enough. It is something that you should think about allowing a lot more time to either sit in gridlock or to take a much longer circuitous route.
I was
And-
like the Park Place, we only had one way out.
I'll go outside.
So, are we taking questions?
Tom, you have Steve.
I'm sorry, Steve.
One question. You mentioned that there was going to be paving done on 99 this spring.
Or summer.
Okay, so we've got the bridge closed, we've got 213 closed, we've got everything closed. What road do
paving-
we have open?
Helicopters. South end of Canby.
The paving will occur after the closure. All right, so then the other thing that you have at your desk is a short version of the story behind the jug handle. And then you've got a newsletter that talks a whole lot about what's going on. This is a very informative document, and I think if you want to be knowledgeable about the jug handle and what to talk to your neighbors about, this provides a lot of great information. So I wanted to make sure we shared that with you.
Is this being sent to all the neighbors?
I'm sorry?
Is this being sent out to everyone then? Because it says postal customers. So will it be sent out to everyone in the city?
No, this is on our website, but we're going to start placing it around. I mean, to send this out to everybody in Oregon City is very expensive. We will have a lot of this information in the next Trail News.
How about having a couple
So
TV
that's something
stations?
that everyone in the city gets.
When the TV stations have their truck here down at the courthouse, could they just kind of mosey over and
I'm
show
sure
us
there will
closed?
be a lot of media coverage of the 4-day closure. The other thing that I wanted to mention is
Are you finished with the closure, 213
No, I'm just
closure?
going to say a few more things
Okay,
about
go
that.
ahead.
So what the thing is, what we're going to be doing is we'll have the little mini detour route. That's if you just have to go through that area, you'll take 99 to 14th Street and 14th Street to Washington Street to 213, and vice versa. Closing some of those intersections, like Tom was concerned about, helps facilitate the traffic flow through those areas because they don't have to keep, like the Abernethy leg of that traffic signal, it'll just be straight through. There won't be any need to stop at that signal, so you'll have a lot better traffic flow. And then when you get to Highway 213, it's all rights, it's right turns all the way. So you'll also have, so I think one of the reasons why Abernethy is not only closed for emergency purposes, which is the primary reason, but there's also, it allows for these traffic signals to operate much more efficiently during the closure.
While you're on that, I mean, anybody who lives in that area, Steve, myself, anybody, 213, when there's an accident down this way, it gets backed up all the way, and all these people coming down 213 block it, so even if you're coming out Redland, you can't get out there. Are they going to have some police control on that weekend to say, stop people so people can get
Yes.
through off Redland?
Yeah, I didn't want to make a copy of this for everybody, but if anybody wants to read it, you can. The other thing we're doing is we're setting out variable message signs throughout the county, and we're having signage way down. We're also notifying the newspapers, again, radio stations all over the region will be broadcasting warnings about this time. And the idea is to get the word out ahead of time, so people coming up from, say, Molalla will go, I'm not taking 213 today, I'm going over to I-5. And yes, it's out of my way, but I know that that's probably
They'll get there quicker.
Yeah. And it's the other thing I wanted to stress is this is for 4 days. It is 4 days of pain. If we had not done this rapid bridge construction where we move it in place and close 213 for 4 days, we would have had to build a bridge in the conventional way, which means you have to take some lanes to be building the new parts of the bridge. Because it had to be in that location too. We couldn't build the bridge like to the side or something. That wouldn't make sense. So in order to do that, we would have had lane closures every day, and rather than it take a year and a half to build this project, it would have taken 2 years to build the project, and it would have been pain pretty much every day for about 8 months. So we're trying to help people understand that the kinds of things that you're talking about would probably be going on daily if we had chose to build a bridge in a conventional manner.
I just think that everybody thought that Abernathy would be open so they could go to 99 through there, and now it looks like they're going to have to get onto 213 no matter what. Boy, that's going to be a mess there when you get all of Redland people coming in.
And I would suggest
there's no other way out.
I would perhaps suggest you take Redland to Holly and take Holly down to Beaver Creek. I mean, really, seriously, get creative here, folks.
And she's shaking her head no, Christine.
Just for 4 days.
Am I accident at the drive-thru?
And Christine, by the way, as long as you welcome Christine, who stopped in, and you can have a chance to say something during roundtable.
And then I somebody asked actually previously too if we're going to have police stationed around. We have a multi-agency incident command that's going to be set up for the 4 days, and we'll have ODOT, State Patrol, Oregon City Police Department, Clackamas County Traffic Signals, ODOT
Ham
Traffic
radio.
Signals, Ham Radio, Public Works, all working together to do as much as we can to inform people about where the problems are. What can we do? Go this way, go that way. But preparation in advance. It's like preparing for an earthquake. It's like preparing for, this is something we should all be preparing for, seriously. And if you can stay at home, stay home. And I don't want to say anything more about it because I don't want to like drive everyone crazy. But it's, I'm thinking it's just the more you're prepared for it, the better off it'll be for
What I
you
was
as
asking,
individuals.
what I was asking about the police at that particular intersection is you've got a lot of people coming down 213, and it's a straight shot for them, but you're going to have Redland and all these other people backed up unless they have an officer there at that particular corner stopping
Don't
them
block
from
the
blocking the intersection and saying and allowing other cars to come through while they hold
Fine
some of them
them.
back.
Fine them. Give 'em
Fine them.
fine.
That is a concern. I hope
We're
that
also
is-
going to have flaggers at
Hey,
a
your
lot of major
chance.
intersections controlling traffic as well. So,
It is a weekend and that helps, but still people want to get out.
and it's
Send
spring
that money to the
break.
state if the
There's
state
a lot
highway.
of a list of things is why that weekend is not so bad.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Nancy?
No,
Oh,
that's
I'm
all.
sorry. Tom O'Brien.
Nancy, I would like to compliment you on this flyer and for putting it into the utility bills. I particularly like to point out the fact that you say, we want to hear from you. This went out to our citizens, our ratepayers, and I think it's a very positive thing that you've done.
And we do.
And
Any-
you will hear from them.
Good.
Anything else? Okay, then let's, was there another, oh, William, I'm sorry, I didn't see your name there.
I also wanted to thank Nancy and everybody that's been involved in orchestrating this 213 interchange, and an additional reminder that in the same way that the pilings were an enormous headache to a lot of people, the pounding, you know what? They stopped. They finally stopped. Yeah. And this, and I can't emphasize this enough, it's only 4 days. This
I'll
is going
get
to
you one
pass.
pack of time.
And in 4 days, it's going to be so nice to be able to use that interchange again. And I just,
kidney stones.
yeah, just like kidney stones. It's going to hurt like hell for a while.
Come and visit us in Holcomb during that
It's
weekend.
going to be so much better. It's only 4 days. It's only 4 days.
But you're not in that neighborhood.
There's a reason.
Anyway, moving right along, let's get to committee reports. Land Use Committee, anything to report?
Other than there's an important land use that's being cooking right now at the city on the hospital master plan and all of the implications associated with parking and their long-term needs. Included in that is a new request on their part to reduce the number of dividers in their parking lot. If you look at Danielson's, you'll see that they have, I think it's 5 parking spots or something, and then you have a divider of a landscape divider.
You mean Safeway?
It's Safeway. And there, the hospital is saying this is really an unusual, unreasonable request. We would like to see more parking. We have a limited footprint. And so they're trying to maximize the number of spaces that they can generate for parking within their footprint. And so within this land use request is asking for a waiver from city code. And so that's probably something to see what happens, because here we have private enterprise like a Danielson's at the Safeway parking lot, and they would have liked to have this, but now the hospital comes along and asks this. What happens?
Okay.
I need to address that real quickly.
Sorry, William?
Paul, if I can address that real quickly. The Hellendale Association did have a representative from the manager from Safeway come at our last meeting, and everyone there is in agreement as to how dysfunctional the Safeway parking lot is. And there was a hint that perhaps Safeway would come back to the city planning asking for some sort of a variance that would allow them to design a reasonable parking lot. So that's just to be aware. Oh, and as long as the hospital is working on a master plan for the parking lot, I sure hope they're considering handicap parking.
Yeah.
They will. Okay, and finally, we have our roundtable, and roundtable is where if you have any subject to address to everyone, some news of upcoming events, this is your time.
And if you don't?
Then just pass it right along so we can get done. So instead of starting up here this time, let's change it up and let's start at the back of the room with Ray. She's here. There's the voice.
Please use the microphone.
The what?
Please use the mic.
If everybody,
She does.
She does. We
Yeah.
can't hear it.
Just want to say thanks to everybody. I recently moved a month ago from Hillendale to McLaughlin, so that's why I'm sitting here and not there. I wanted to thank Steve for taking over.
And officially turn my
Yeah, I want to turn it over, yeah. But I want to say thanks to everybody for welcoming me a couple years ago when I showed up and became chair at the end of the meeting somehow. So I appreciate it, because somebody had stepped down and then everybody looked at me and like, what? But it was it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, so I appreciate it.
Next.
Please.
Please.
Okay, come up two at a time so we can get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do it. Come on, next one.
Do you have anything to say tonight? Okay.
Scott Young from the Tower Vista Neighborhood Association. Our next meeting will be the 14th, Wednesday the 14th of next month. I brought that up. I do have 3 comments. Tom, if you ever get to the point to where you're going to do a review of the bylaws and how all this works out, I want to be there when that time comes. Okay. Other question, Nancy, from what I understood of the information that you passed out and the flyer in regards to the transportation, I'm not going to use the right words, but the transportation master plan. Mm-hmm. You already have all of the people involved put in place through your committees and everything else, or are you still looking for outside? Be careful what you say. You might.
No, for the stakeholder advisory committee, if there are citizens that are still interested in participating on that, they have not had their first meeting yet, and I would love to hear from anyone who's interested.
Okay, so you're still
We would still
interested
take people,
in
yes.
some input in
Yes.
regards to it.
Yes, and there'll also be public meetings. So, but if you'd like to, if you know people who want to be on the committee, if you do, contact me.
Well, one of the things is with our neighborhood, there's not a lot of activities other than it's a residential area. So pedestrian traffic, bike traffic, things of this nature seem to be a high topic with the neighborhood. And they're not that interested in the stores and everything else that goes on. So that's there. Okay, that finishes that, and I guess that's it.
Thank you. Do we have two more people who would like to come up so we can save time?
Everybody else is going to pass? Great.
That's okay. Anybody here who has something to add to the roundtable is welcome.
I'm Christine Kaczynski. I live in unincorporated Clackamas County.
The 3-minute clock. Just kidding.
I came here for several things. One of the things regarding the 4-day closure of the roads. Our biggest concern is the additional traffic on Holly. And since it's such a long, long street, like 500 people, how do we notify them? So we're trying to work on this to bring in more safety for our neighborhood, because safety has been a huge issue on Holly Lane. The other thing about the February 8th ODOT open houses, I did respond to the email on that for the hamlet of Beaver Creek. The hamlet of Beaver Creek has only one way in and one way out, and that's Beaver Creek Road. And a lot of these people need to access 213 and West Lynn and the Arch Bridge, and they were never notified. And so I did ask them to be more open to Malino, Malala, people that are coming in on Highway 213 and using those important streets. And the third thing I came here for was the parking at the courthouse. And I won't go into a long dissertation, but real quick, last year I did have business at the courthouse. And it was shortly after I had a total knee replacement, so I was, quote, handicapped at the time. And when I needed to arrive at the courthouse, I allowed extra time because I was slow. It was raining real hard. So I get up, one handicap parking place taken. And so it was when one of the big trials was going on, there was just no place to park. And so I parked blocks and blocks away. And with my cane, I finally made it up to the courthouse. When I got inside, I got into the entrance, and they found a ladies' Leatherman that my husband had given me in my purse. And ladies do need those every now and then. And so, of course, they wouldn't let me in. And so she says to me, she says, well, we'll have to take it, or you can take it back to your car. And so I'm not really speaking for myself, but I'm thinking of people in wheelchairs, people on oxygen tanks, people that have a really much harder time getting around. So, I got to thinking, how would they feel if, a ladies' Leatherman was worth quite a bit to me, and I didn't have time to walk back to the car and make it back. So they didn't even offer to hold it for me. I lost it. Then on top of it, I got to my parking place and got a ticket. So I wrote, because I couldn't walk that far to reload the meter. So I wrote to the city after paying my ticket and told them I was handicapped, and they didn't really care. They took my money. And so I was very upset for everybody that's handicapped and needs to access the courthouse. And that was one of my purposes to come tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw your leather one on eBay somewhere.
Is that where it came up?
Okay, next.
Did you check eBay?
That's supposed to reload the meeting, but
We have a Park Place general meeting coming up on February 27th at 7 p.m. at the Red Community Building. Other than that, I think we're done.
Howard, did you want to talk at all?
No, I don't.
As an option. Did you want to come up and say? Okay.
Our park's coming along nicely. It's going to be open April of this year, they said. We feel kind of slighted because we were promised a lot by the Parks Department to be kept in the loop with a $500,000 project. We haven't been kept in the loop, period. We're going to have a rather pointed meeting with Scott and the architect up at the park to look at some of the work that was done that is really not up to standards for a $500,000. But anyway, it's going to be open in April. We're going to deal with this. Secondly, Nancy Chapman sent me a video of Route 66. Some of us are old enough to remember that. And it shows Oregon City in 1966, and they come through and did a lot of crazy things. And I'll send it around to really.
I think we all saw that last fall.
Well, you might have thought, I just got home.
It's going around again, yeah.
I thought it was kind of cool.
And I heard that you can actually order the entire show on Amazon.com.
Yeah, cool. Anyway, that's all we have. We have a meeting. We have our bylaws are in place, and they're very explicit to what you can and what can't do. And as far as the city trying to control us, somewhat they do, because we're here, aren't we? And we're on television.
Exactly.
Thank you.
If you buy all those movies, you get a free leather. Moving along. Let's start with Nancy. Do you have anything more to add to the?
No, I just came to answer questions and to clarify.
And thanks for being here on your time. I really appreciate it. Next.
I'm, Steve Anderson, Hillendale. I think Ray deserves a round of applause for starting up Hillendale again, getting it going, pushing it down the hill. We'll try to do it justice. Which leads me into our report. We need a co-chair at Hillendale, so I'm putting the call out. Sure, come on over to our neighborhood. That's fine. Right now, we're set up as a co-chair leadership. So right now, I'm doing a solo act until we have someone that's interested to come in and help co-chair. I'm a little nasally. I've been sitting too close to Nancy this evening. It'll get better. Steering committee meets tomorrow evening. The Hillendale Steering Committee. We pick good places. It's going to be at Bugatti's.
Ooh, yeah.
So,
Good choice.
yeah, just come on over and join in. Sure.
They serve wine too. We haven't been there for 2 hours.
Our neighborhood association met on January 3rd. We welcomed John Elliott, the new manager for the Safeway, and encouraged him to either himself or pick one of his lieutenants to be a regular part of our neighborhood association and show up for the meetings.
Good snacks.
Well, yeah. It just so happens that they did. Mayor Doug Neely was present to encourage the filing of applications for the open and vacant commission seat. As William pointed out, we voted to support the land use offer for the city of Oregon City to purchase the county land at Red Soils campus for a permanent library, and emphasize permanent library. And our next meeting is April 3rd. So there you go.
Okay. Thank you. Chris?
I just have one thing. At the conclusion of the meeting, for those of you that have monitors, would you do me the favor of, in the top right corner, you'll see where it says log out. Would you hit on log out, and then on the bottom right side, there's a button, and turn your monitor off for me?
I already did.
Thank you.
Okay. Nancy?
Well, I just can't preach enough about this. What's that? I also brought I brought about 50 copies of the
I can use those
flyer.
up in Park Place.
And I was hoping that perhaps some of you would take them with you and pass them out amongst your friends. So I'll just, I think Christina, you want some too, maybe, or?
I'll take the rest.
Can I have one more? Just one more for
Here.
Christina. Thank you.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Well, hey,
It's going to
bring
be
them.
more. It's more about us, Steve, than it is anybody else. I don't think they're going to go around very long.
who's next then?
If you run short, I got more.
Okay, William, anything?
Just briefly, and I don't want to steal any thunder that Amy might have brought, but we did have our Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association meeting, and what's that?
They're just talking.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, our newly installed chair was not able to make it, and so we had to have another William and Chris show. But we had some good input, and it was nice to have another Gaffney Lane meeting. And I hope you're going to be able to attend those now. So we'll keep rolling along on that. And so far as the Hilldale Association, I have nothing to report other than what Steve had reported. Thanks, Steve.
I passed. Larry?
Well, I was going to tell you the date of my next Caulfield meeting, but my computer won't access the internet.
I can
so
tell you that.
If I could trouble my friend Chris.
Next, Mike Berman?
29th.
February 28th.
28th. At the police department.
Pass.
Other than that, I pass.
I pass.
Tom?
Pass.
Hazel Grove Wrestling Farm has their next meeting March 17th. It's the third Thursday at the Methodist Church next to the fire station. And we're going to have Scott Archer come and talk. Phyllis Stockenfield Hart is going to do bingo in April. Then we're going to do July concert in the park to raise money. We're going to do August, and we're going to have Ray is going to be singing when we do one of the concerts in the park for Phyllis Stockenfield Hart.
Far out.
So, and I told him you're good. I told him you're good, and you can talk to me and then get right back on track. Okay.
I would just like to come back. The transportation advisory system that's set up at the city is good. You can get on, and you can really identify things like where you need a parking stop sign or virtually anything. So this is really an opportunity for neighborhood associations to tell everyone about getting onto this thing, and it's. Do it now or never, you might say. It's one of those things. This is an opportunity.
And everybody who gets utility bill got it. And what Paul's talking about is www.octransportationplan.org.
Yes. And it's really not difficult.
Just before I go to you, Don, I forgot I was supposed to mention for Rocky. He's doing a paranormal conference here at the Pioneer Center in early March, and he's got people coming from all over the Pacific Northwest to Idaho, Montana, Washington. It's going to be a really big thing he's planning here. So anybody who believes in ghosts in Oregon City, that's your weekend to come out and see what Rocky is.
And we're taking a tour out to Kenema, old Kenema cemetery, and letting them talk to some of the people out there.
I'll bring Ursula.
Don't wake up none of my relatives.
Don. Thank you, not sash you back.
Don.
Well, it's quieter than that in the Berkeley Hills Neighborhood Association, where we have the big cemetery, but what the heck. No, not much going on there. We need a new chairperson. Our other one has backed out, so it's just Walter and me running the joint. But we're doing a good job, and see if we can get organized.
Mountain View intersection?
Well, you want me to bring that up, huh?
Yes.
Well, it's the Mountain View / Berkeley Hills left turn fiasco up there, which I brought to the Transportation Committee, and they did a nice study. And basically, we don't have enough accidents at that intersection to have
everybody
anything
pitched
done.
in.
So it's up to. That's what we were told. So it's up to us to educate people to use little Hilda over there for the left turns, which never works. But we'll keep working on it. Something will happen, and somebody will say we should have done something. So that's my opinion.
Okay, Ingrid.
The South End neighborhood, at their last general meeting, voted to have 5 meetings different than with Hillendale Westland Farm. So we are no longer going to be meeting together, but we're going to be meeting in January, March, May, August, and October. And so our first steering committee meeting since that meeting will be this Friday. And so we'll see what happens.
Okay. David?
I have nothing.
Okay. I believe unless...
No.
I'm sorry, I asked Amy earlier.
You did, and I
thought of something later.
Good.
I would like to find out about being involved. It looks like Gaffney Lane isn't very well represented. That is something I'm interested in at some point. But one thing I noticed didn't come up tonight that has been brought to my attention by the county and the city at different venues is this, the thing with the broadband internet. I don't know if that's been brought up here at this council in the past or not. It seems like something that should be looked at. I know that several comments from the county, people that are going to be making the decisions, they're about done. And they're just about to skip Oregon City, and I think that would be a really sad thing. So I didn't know if that was something that had been in the past since I'm just now getting involved. But
Nancy, address that?
Well, the city is still actively trying to negotiate with the county. We do have our municipal code requires that we charge franchise fees to folks that are using the right-of-way. And we've tried to, we presented a much reduced franchise fee rate to the county, believing that there's probably some benefits we can quantify into a kind of, to make the rate whole. And their first response was they would pay no franchise fee. And so we're continuing to negotiate with them. The ball's in the county's court right now. Because we would love for them to come back with us with another. 0 is not okay, but we really are hoping we find a place where we can reach an agreement.
Can I add one thing,
Do all municipalities that where this is running through, are they also charging franchise fees?
Well, our code is a little different than some of the other
no,
municipalities.
that's the county's problem.
Nancy, excuse me, I just have a question.
Use the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Scott.
I was kind of under the impression from what I got out of some comments by the city manager, isn't there maybe a little, if Oregon City didn't charge something, how long would it be till Comcast, till everybody else decided, oh, well, we're going to sue the city, we don't want to pay these fees. So if the city was to back down and say, oh, yeah, the county should just go ahead and put this through and do this, there's a lot more to this than just the city needs to back down, accept nothing, and go from there. This is another one of those situations where it's tough to be a city manager.
And that's a very good point.
I don't know how much truth there is. This is kind of what I was
that
thinking.
is exactly one of the risks that we're trying to hedge our
our
position with.
If you give the
against.
county free, how long will it be till Xfinity sues the city? And they're big enough, they might win.
That's
Okay.
true.
I think that concludes our business. We really appreciate all of you who showed up this evening and participated. Thank you. And our next meeting is when? Chris, do you have that date up there?
March 5.
March 5th. Same time, same place. Thank you.
I get my thing in my